Hello fellow makeup lovers, how are you guys doing today? Welcome back, or welcome for the first time if you're new here. My name is Amy and I do a ton of content around independently owned makeup brands. So if you'd like to see more of that in your subscription feed, don't forget to subscribe. But today is a super exciting video because we're going to be ranking every single eyeshadow palette from Adept Cosmetics. So they have 6 different eyeshadow palettes. They're not all available now, and I'll kind of go through and give you guys all the details as we go, but they are launching a brand new palette on the 25th, the Heather Austin collaboration palette. I already have a video up, which I'll link for you in the cards right here. I wanted to go ahead, rank every single one, share my favorites, as well as recommend who I think each palette would be good for. I thought I would go through, and as we're talking about each palette, I'm gonna do some live swatches of my favorite shades, and then I'm also going to insert some swatches of the entire palette swatched out of each palette so you can see everything in detail. And then at the very end we will go ahead and do some shade by shade comparisons just in case there is anything that you're curious to see. Especially with the newest palette, the Heather Austin palette. I know a few of y'all were wondering if there were any repeats. They are brand new shades, but I just want to show you what is closest to what's in there in the Adept collection. So I did leave it on screen already, but all of these palettes were sent to me as PR. So just to let you know right off the bat, I do have an affiliate code with Adept as well. It's just Amy Loves, and it does work on some palettes. It's not going to work on the Heather Austin palette because discount codes don't apply to that one. But now let's go ahead and jump on in. So coming into 6th place is going to be the Adept Cosmetics Codeine palette. So this is the only palette that we're talking about today that has 10 shades instead of 12, and the packaging is a little bit smaller. I mean, you can kind of see with everything else going on here, they match so well. They all have like the same kind of packaging going on, and this has it too. It's just a little bit shorter. I mean, I literally love how these look together, but anyways, Codeine is 10 shades. Here is what it looks like on the inside. So this one is kind of an interesting color story. You've got 2 mattes, a super bright hot pink matte and a bright teal matte, which also just reminded me, because I do have this shade on my eyes today, I filmed a palette bingo using one shade from every single one of these palettes on my Patreon. In case you guys are curious, I'll have that link down below, but that is the eye look I've got going on. I've got one shade from every palette, and I think it turned out really well. But anyways, I do really like this, and it's kind of funny because it's like, yes, it's in last place out of all the palettes, but I think the reason why is because this is the one palette where I feel like I like all the colors individually, but together I'm not incredibly inspired to use them. I feel like I think of these more in simple eye looks, and I do like them. Like, I feel like the like really blue toned kind of silver shades. There's a really nice true multi-chrome here. I don't know if you can see, like, it's just super, super pretty. But again, like, using this palette by itself, it just seems a little bit like all over the place. So this shade ACI 28 is definitely one of my favorites. I feel like it's just such a grungy shade. I really like to pull that one into some like really cool toned looks. I also really like ACI 27 because, like I said, that one is a true multi-chrome, just super, super pretty. And then we'll do ACI 29 as well because I feel like that would be my 3rd favorite shade in this palette. It's just like a stunning blue. So, I mean, I would say quality of this palette is really nice. The matte shades are a little bit drier, but all the shimmers are super beautiful, super reflective, foiled. The multi-chromes and the duochromes are super shifty, so I've got no complaints. I think, like I said, the reason why that one just comes in last place is color story alone. So in 5th place is going to be the Amunet new palette. I do love the packaging of this one because it's that super foiled bright red. Just think it's so, so pretty. Here's what Amunet new looks like. I do want to point out that this is the light version. This shade Seth right here in the light version is just like a really pale kind of light purple, and in the dark version it's like a kind of like grungy cobalt blue. It's only one shade that is different, and I believe that both of those, if they're not available now, they were available in the past as single shadows. So this one is going to be in 5th place because I do really like all the mattes in here. I feel like especially these top 3 shades look so pretty. They just create like a super effortless purple kind of look. They're very smoky. I feel like the neutral shades in here are all really beautiful. And this is more of like an everyday, work appropriate, neutral kind of palette. I'm saying that like for what like a lot of people think. I think that you should wear your makeup however you want to, but that's the vibes that I get from this. And so the reason why I think that it's not higher ranked is because even though all that is super pretty, I feel like I just live and breathe for Adept shimmers. Those are what really kill it for me. So this being more of, it's not even that it's a matte heavy, it's that it's equal. I personally prefer their eyeshadow palettes to have more shimmers than mattes because I feel like their shimmers are what are really special. I do really like the matte formula in here. I think that it was definitely improved from like the Ninhydrin, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and the Codeine, which I said with those mattes were a little bit drier. These are really nice mattes, but I love their shimmers so much that it just does not rank up to the other palettes. And it's funny because I'm gonna go ahead and swatch all my favorites in here, and it is these shimmers. So this shade right here called Hather is literally so beautiful, so intense. Like it's like this green, pink, purple kind of multi-chrome. And I just feel like it looks so reflective on the inner corner. This is one of the prettiest inner corner shades ever. Or you could put it all over your lid. You could use it as a topper, but I just think it is so, so pretty. And it has like the texture is just above and beyond. And then this shade, Nifthis, I'm not sure that I'm pronouncing it right exactly, but it's another super, super intense kind of shifty shade. Like it's just so, so beautiful, and the reflectiveness is above and beyond. And then I guess just for, you know, sake of showing the mattes, I'll go ahead and do Horus right here because I do really like this one. It's like a grungy purple gray, and you can see it's really pigmented. I feel like it's really smooth. So those would be my favorite shades from the Amunet new. I mean, those shimmers, they just took my breath away, honestly. So coming into fourth place is going to be the Adept Ninhydrin palette. And this one has the same packaging, but it's like this really pretty purple. It is so similar to the Natasha Lila palette packaging. Obviously just a different size, but the shade and just the way that it looks, super, super close. So here is the inside of Ninhydrin. It is just beautiful. Like you can see, it is a very shimmer heavy palette. There's only 2 mattes in here, and the mattes I don't really love. I did use one of them today and it blended okay. I was very, very careful with it, but I just feel like these are not the most blendable mattes. There's a lot of indie brands that do the mattes better, and even like I said, Adept, this is an older palette from them, so their newer mattes are better. But the shimmers in here are so beautiful. I feel like if you love purples, like this palette, I mean, obviously there's little pops of other things, but the purples in this palette are so, so pretty. I just absolutely love them. I just feel like all the shimmers in here, other than this shade right here, ACD 18, and then 21 and 23 are very similar, but other than that, I feel like all the shimmers are super, super special, super high impact. So that's why it ended up in fourth place. Like I said, all the palettes are good, but I'm gonna start off with ACI 20 because this is one of those like super intense purple blue shimmery shadows, and it's just to die for. And then let's do Ninhydrin. I feel like this one doesn't swatch as well because it has like a gray base to it, and then it has a purple shift, but I think it's such a cool shade. Like I feel like on the finger it looks good there, but when I swatch it out, it tends to kind of sheer a little bit, but I feel like built up, it is such a cool grungy shade. And then, oh, this is so hard to decide. I think I'll do ACI 24 because this is such a pretty like deep teal with like a purpley burgundy base. Oh, okay, one more. We're also gonna do ACI 19 because it's kind of like a multi-chrome, like green, pinky, gold, shimmery, just goodness happening. I swatched that a little bit more with my pinky because pinky swatches are always the worst, but I mean, I feel like every single one of these shades just makes this palette so worth it to me. I mean, it's kind of like just like a jewel toned dream, which is kind of funny because I don't really go for jewel toned shadows as much, but these are just done so well. So now coming into third place is going to be the Plain Jane Remastered palette. This one has super foiled pink packaging, which I love. I think it's so girly, so cute. But this is kind of a weird one to rank because there is the Plain Jane original palette, and they are essentially almost the same. Almost every single shade's the same. There's just a few that are different. So I'll go ahead and show you what they look like next to one another. But the Plain Jane Remastered ranks just a little bit lower, and I'll kind of explain more as I go. But I do have a full video doing like swatch comparisons of every single shade in this palette compared to the original. In case you're curious, I'll link it in the cards. But I don't know. Okay, so this one does have the packaging going for it that I love so much, and all the shades are really beautiful. I think what bumps it down just a little bit is there's a few shades, I don't know, it's so hard to decide. There's a few shades in here that I feel like are a little bit less intense than the original Plain Jane, but the original Plain Jane kind of has lost some of its creaminess over time, and these are supposed to last a little bit better. There's also some multi-chromes in here that are super special and pretty, but there's just something about the original Plain Jane that just like grabs at my heart. I just love it so much, and I've used it so much that I just didn't feel right having this one rank above the original. Just being honest, just following my heart. I know it's not that serious, but it felt kind of serious. So I guess I'll go ahead and swatch what makes this palette a little bit different than the original one, the shades that I really like out of here. So one is gonna be ACI 10, which is a beautiful multi-chrome. It's kind of got like a white, pink, gold peachiness going on, and it is what I used as my face highlighter today. It's a little bit more thin than the other like multi-chrome that I swatched for y'all, and the multi-chrome that I'm gonna swatch in the Heather Austin palette. Those are thicker. This has a thinner look to it, which is why I think it works okay as a highlighter. It definitely does emphasize some texture and whatnot, but I just think it is a beautiful shadow. And then there's also, like I said, two multi-chromes in here that I think are so pretty, but I would say if I had to choose one that's my favorite, it would be ACI 12, because that one is like flipping from like a pink to a green, and I just think it's super intense. I mean, you can't see it that well there, but it does flip. And then another shade that is different is ACI 13 right here, which is a really cool shade. It's kind of like a neutrally like greeny olivey gold. So there, it's my favorite shades from Plain Jane Remastered. I feel like I should swatch that one a little bit more so you can see the shift. You can kind of see right there. Like I said, I have a full video with comparisons where you can get some really in-depth swatches. We've got two palettes left, Heather Austin, Plain Jane, and honestly, I've been going back and forth on which one is my number one, the one I'm gonna rank at the very top. But I think I'm just gonna follow my heart, even though it might be just like a little bit of like that like new love kind of thing. So in second place is the original Plain Jane. This palette is no longer available. It has like a little bit of a different packaging, and I feel like this is kind of the palette that started everything. It was their first eyeshadow palette, if I remember correctly, and I feel like people just fell in love with this for good reason, and I just think it is so stunning. If you love super intense sparkly shadows, if you love duochromes, like you just cannot go wrong with this palette. Like I said, it's not available anymore, and the Plain Jane Remastered is very similar. The one thing that gets me is I feel like the shade ACI 6 is better in the Plain Jane palette, and I just feel like that's one of my favorite shades. So I wish that the Plain Jane Remastered, that shade was just as intense. I would say overall everything else is very similar, so I'll just go ahead and swatch ACI 6 because I feel like it is so pretty. Like the foilness, again, everything. And then ACI 2 is not in the new palette, if I remember correctly. This is a really cool kind of neutral, kind of grungy, bronzy shade. And then my other favorite from this palette would definitely be ACI 11. Again, it's like that super intense purple blue shift. This one's just a little bit darker, and it has like a little bit more of like a pinky purpleness to it. So there's what they look like, and the dip in this pan is ridiculous. There's actually dips in quite a few of these shades. So there's my favorite shades. I mean, they're just so pretty. I'm having like the time of my life right now, honestly. So coming in first place is going to be the Heather Austin palette. This one has a beautiful kind of plum color to the packaging, which I really love. And here is what it looks like on the inside. I mean, this palette, I just adore the shades that were chosen. So there are 4 mattes, but I feel like I said, the mattes are really, really nice in here. They have improved the matte formula. I feel like they blend really well. And this shade right here, PA02, the burgundy, is just such a pretty burgundy. Love it so much. But what I'm really here for is honestly the shimmers. I feel like every single shimmer in here I absolutely love. I'd reach for, I have been reaching for, and the texture of some of these is just so incredible, so foiled, and they just feel super, super nice. I used one today actually. I used 0603 on like the outer half of my lid, and I got no fallout from it. I didn't use a glitter primer, and I feel like it performed so beautifully. So I really appreciate that. I love when an eyeshadow is easy to work with, and I mean, that shade just has so much sparkle to it. It's just so, so pretty. I'm like feeling conflicted over which shades to swatch, even though I just did swatches of these in a first impression. So like I said, I'll have that linked, but my favorite shades in this palette would definitely be Passport. It's just such a beautiful like purple base, and it has like a bluey green shift to it, and I don't know if you can tell, but it is just so, so metallic. And then this shade Austin I love as well. It's just like, it is very intense. It's a little bit more flaky, so you got to be careful with that one, I will say. But it has like this like purple, like lavender to green kind of shift to it, and it's just so, so beautiful. And then, oh gosh, I don't know, y'all. I mean, Smith is such a beautiful multi-chrome, but I feel like I'm leaning towards 0603 being my 3rd favorite, just because the texture of that shadow, like it looks so sparkly on the lid. It is just so, so beautiful. And then I'll swatch the burgundy for y'all too, just so you can see, because it is super, super pigmented. Like, I mean, it is a pinky swatch, so let's not get our hopes up, but I mean, the texture, the shine, like how could you not be obsessed with that shade? Oh, I love it so much. This one is a lot more creamy. It feels almost like a cream shadow actually. And then here is the burgundy. Like I said, that is a pinky swatch, which can be kind of weird. I feel like that actually looks really bad in that swatch, but I promise it is so good, so pigmented. So there's my favorite shades from the Heather Austin palette. So last but not least for this video, let's go ahead and do comparisons of this palette to anything else from Adept that is similar, just because I know some of y'all wanted to see that and I wanted to get some comparisons live before it launches. Here is what it looks like next to Codaine. So between these two, I think I really want to go ahead and swatch Smith in comparison with ACI 27, because those are both multi-chromes that kind of have like that green orangey thing happening. I feel like Smith is a lot of a brighter green, but I still want to compare them. I want to compare ASM 34 to Magnolia here because those look pretty similar. And then I feel like between everything else, I feel like that's pretty much it out of Codaine. So here is Smith and here is ACI 27. They are both multi-chromes. They both have a similar shift, but I feel like Smith is so much more foiled. It's such a brighter shade. Smith, ACI 27. Yeah, they look pretty different swatched out. And then, I mean, I feel like you could compare Codaine here. Like the brightness of the green is similar. The foilness is similar, but it doesn't have a shift. Actually, it's much lighter. Okay. I was so wrong. All right, so here is Magnolia and here is ACM 34. Magnolia definitely has a little bit more green to it versus the Codaine, which has a little bit more of a teal look to it. And you can see it's definitely less pigmented. So next, just pulling out Amunet Nude. I feel like there's not much repeating here. I don't even know what to really compare. I mean, maybe Atlas and Ammon, just so you guys can see, because those are both like warm, kind of neutral mid-tone browns. I feel like all the other shimmers are just so different. Like this is a purple, but it has like this like grungy green base, and it's just so different than these like neutrally ones going on here. Yeah, I mean, I feel like the only one I can compare is the mattes. Oh, or, okay, actually, I could do Heather and Austin. They look so different for me right here because Austin is like super green, Heather looks super purple, but I'm just looked over on camera and I feel like they look the same. So here is Ammon, and here it's Atlas. Here is the, I believe that's the Amunet New, and here's from Heather Austin. Okay, here's Heather and here is Austin, so you can see the texture. It's a little bit different. Austin is more intense. I'm just gonna swatch these right here. That was Heather and that was Austin. You can see that actually swatched out, they look quite different. So I'm gonna go ahead and compare the Plain Jane Remastered to this one just because this is the palette that is still available. So here is what they look like next to one another. I feel like between these two, we can definitely compare ACI 10 to Austin just so you can see what those look like. I feel like we can do ACI 12 to Video Chat. And then there's a bunch of purples going on, but they don't really look that similar. We could do ACI 14 to Hey Y'all. Maybe some of y'all would want to see Passport versus ACI 6, but I don't feel like they're that similar. But I guess I'll just go ahead and show it either way. So first off, I'm just gonna grab ACI 10 and compare that to the shades that I already have swatched here, because you've got Austin in the middle. So you can see again, it is a different shade. So here is Video Chat versus ACI 2. You can see ACI 2 has more red to it, and Video Chat I would call a multi-chrome because it has like that shift of orange and gold and green. So they're quite different. Video Chat, ACI 2. Next I have Passport and ACI 6. So you can see same kind of vibe, but different shifts. I'm gonna put these right here simply because we're running out of room. Next we have ACI 4 next to Hey Y'all. As you can see, Hey Y'all is a little bit more neutral, a little more plummy. Maybe a little bit more sparkly. Lastly, let's go ahead and compare the Ninhydrin palette. I mean, I feel like we can compare ACI 20 to Scrubs because they both have like a purpley blue kind of duochrome to them, but Scrubs has a burgundy flip to it as well, so I don't feel like they're gonna be repeats. I feel like all the other shades are quite different. So last but not least, we've got Scrubs versus ACI 20. As you can see, ACI 20 is quite a bit lighter. Maybe we should compare one of like these like darker purples as well, like ACI 23. You can see in comparison, but it just doesn't have a shift to it. Here's ACI 21, but I feel like you can tell, like, even though you've got a blue and a purple and everything, they're just quite different than this one. This one's much smokier and it has a lot more shifts going on. So, ay. Should I be a palm swatcher? I've never been a palm swatcher, but here, Heather Austin, ACI 20, and then the Ninhydrin other colors. So, I mean, I feel like you can tell. Again, they're all quite different. So I would say if you are someone who has a bunch of palettes from Adept, you were worried, you thought there were some shades that might be similar, definitely not. There's nothing repeating, not even close. Like, I feel like normally with brands when I do this, like there's like one or two shades, but not today. All right, y'all, so that was everything for today's video. I truly hope it was helpful, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.